The truth comes to light. Our president shot, but says fight, 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 fight. America's song is the anthem. There's only one, and you can have some. Oh, say can you see by the dawn's early light? This is the song of America's fight. It's our time now. The truth comes to light. Our president shot, but says fight, fight, fight. America's song is her anthem.
All right, here we are, guys. Red, white, and ruthless. We are 22. 22. We are still working on our Fixin problem series. We've got a few more problems to work on. We're going to talk about today. So, as a reminder, don't get your little feelings hurt. Okay, don't be soft. Okay, we're fixing problems, man. And sometimes you got to look at yourself. Okay, you got to look at yourself and say, yeah, fuck, that's kind of me, you know. I got to fix that shit. All right. So yeah. Let's talk about get right fucking into it, man. Talk about our next problem. I saved it from last time because it is kind of a big one. Some people are probably gonna get upset at Ruthless over this one. I don't know. I mean, I'm pretty sure you'll get over it. I'll get over it. But it's racism, okay? And it's a big fucking deal. All right, it's a big deal. I think the number one thing with racism is you could be a racist no matter what color you are. Okay. You could be a racist. I'm saying it again. You could be a racist no matter what color you are. Okay. You can. You can absolutely be that. All right. When we had those that lady was in Cincinnati who just got the dog shit kicked out of her by I don't know how many guys. There was a bunch of black guys that I saw, but I don't know. But and that's not the point. It's the councilwoman came out and said, essentially, she asked for it. She fucking asked for it. So how do you get that? I mean, obviously, black councilwoman. Black folks are the ones that beat the dog shit out of her, and she asked for it. Yeah, I just don't understand that. Yeah, this one. So here's the deal, man. Is like, I'm a white guy. All right. I'm not going to fix black folks. Okay. I'm going to tell you what I think. But y'all need to think about your own behavior. And just like white folks, call us out. Is fine. I think people need to call each other out. Okay. And that's essentially what I'm doing. Okay. But culturally, I think we almost need to be on the same page, when it comes to calling each other out when we're out of pocket, when shit is getting racial. It's like, if I see a white dude or white people being racial, I need to be part of the crowd that's saying, hey, man, you need to fucking check and correct your shit. All right. Cause that ain't fucking cool. All right. But I don't see a lot of that, cause let's be honest, is the primary racial tension in America is between blacks and whites. Okay. I mean, it is. There's no point in dancing around it. It is. I'm not being racist, calling it out. I mean, it is what it is. Blacks talk about, we always hear about reparations and about how white folks keep them, slavery and all that shit. Um, and it just, we're getting to a point where I heard the term, what was it? It was, gosh, let me think of it. And I'm gonna have to think of it. But we're getting to the point where we're just exhausted listening to about shit that none of us took part in. 150, 200 years ago. None of us took part in it. None of us owned slaves. None of us did any of the things, and none of y'all were slaves and suffered any of the things that those folks suffered. And if you go back in the history of the world, we all know that every race was enslaved at some point. And we also know that it was the black folks, the kings in Africa, that sold the slaves on the beaches to the slave ships as they pulled up, and they had y'all fucking all the slaves, ready to roll, and they pick them up, buy them, and take off and sell them. I mean, why does that 200 years ago, 150 years, whatever it was, why does that matter today? We need to get off that subject because everyone is exhausted, hearing about it. There is no way, the, I actually heard a friend of mine talk about going back to slave days. And I thought, you are a fucking idiot. You're a fucking idiot. There were 600,000 people that died in the Civil War making sure that we that we do not have slavery in the United States. And most of those were white people, okay? But nobody mentions that shit. All right? Nobody mentioned that shit. All right? It just fucking pisses me. Going back to slavery. What a fucking idiot. And that shit pisses me off. To think that because Donald Trump is president, we're going back to slavery. What a fucking nonsense. But it's very irritating. Okay, so we need to move into current America. Okay, and it's heavily divided. So why are we divided? Well, I think we're at a time where we're all just kind of tired of hearing about racism. The word key, it's a political thing, a political hot button that Democrats push. But when you really look at, and I get that there are some cases where, blacks are unfairly treated, by the police and shit like that. There's cases where whites are, probably every race are unfairly treated. But I would, I would be wrong to say that if, that it probably has something to do with race as to why they're unfairly treated in some cases by the police. Okay, that is not indicative of society, though. Okay, it's just not, and it's not really indicative of the majority of policing in the United States either. There's some horrible shit that has happened that that shouldn't have happened, and we need to hold them people accountable. All right, and that's the next point. Is what I see is blacks are idolizing bad people. Like George Floyd. I mean, he's a criminal. He held a gun to a pregnant woman's stomach. He was a drug addict and criminal. and they're building statues. Okay, there's a number of them, but they just one after the other, one after the other, um, where these people are idolized and treated. What did they do? Yes, they were, in George Floyd's case, he was unlawfully he was murdered by a bad cop. Let's deal with the bad cop. Let's not act like what George Floyd was doing was right or lawful. Okay, let's get back to just the issue. Okay, because those things really they spur on other feelings with the rest of the world. Okay, and that kind of irritates other people. It's like you idolize these people who are criminals, you know, um, just don't get it. How about a great guy like Denzel Washington or something? Yeah, I don't know, um, but yeah, and the term I was trying to think of was black fatigue. Okay, and I heard it. I didn't come up with it, obviously. I heard it, but it's kind of um, the way I took it. It was like the you know the things that the the riots that BLM gets involved to, the beatings, the shootings on the every weekend where there's people murdered, and the calling of racism at every single interaction. It's got to be racism if there's something negative going on. It's not, people. Sometimes y'all are just an asshole. All right. And sometimes white folks are assholes. Okay. I get it. Let's deal with the behavior. Okay. Deal with the behavior and get away from the race stuff. Okay. That's what I'm saying, is get away from the race. Everything isn't racial. Okay. It's not all fucking racial. Okay. It's just not. I, I, I was, and I'm gonna give you a story of my own, and I don't know if I didn't know how to feel about it, but I thought it was like out of pocket. But I was in a store, or walking in a store, and I was in California, and I saw a gentleman. It was a black guy, and his looked like his son. I'm sure it was. He was a probably teenager, uh, walking. He was directly behind me, and I was messing around on my phone, and I was not in a hurry at all, and I was by myself, and he was on, as I recall, on some crutches, and he was having difficulty getting along, and I wanted to make sure that I didn't like slow him up or be in his way as he was trying to get in the store. So I just pulled over and turned around and let him pass me. And as I did, he was all pissed off at me. He started like yelling at me. You didn't need to do that. There's plenty of room to get it. I'm like, I'm just trying to be nice. There's no ill intent here. I mean, and maybe he's just an asshole. All right. Maybe he's just an asshole. But I felt at that moment that was probably black fatigue, black fatigue. I don't know, but at that moment I was like, who's gonna do that? How about just thank you? Or no, I'm good, man. Just go ahead and go, or whatever. How about just treating people nice? Okay. Oh no, man. But this race thing has got to be dealt with. Um, because I do feel like in things are happening that are not good for and let's be real, for black people. Um, I feel like while they're when all you have, every excuse you have why you don't from whatever, pay the rent. Why you don't? I saw there was uh, a black female younger lady who was trying to call her mom. She was stealing, or she was defrauding a bank on social media, and they were trying to arrest her, and she was yelling and screaming and getting all out of hand, and all of this, and calling, trying to call her mom, and because she's black and all that. No, it's because you were trying to steal money from the fucking bank. And there was another one from from like a Walmart or something, where they had, where she had stole a whole bunch of product. And again, it's first thing is because I'm black. Okay, we need to get away from that shit. Okay, if you did it, you did it. Okay, we ain't calling you out because you're black. We're calling you out because you fucking did it. All right, and if that hurts your feelings, man, get the fuck over it. All right. And same thing with with white folks. If you did it, I mean, white folks don't say, well, you did it because I'm white. I mean, no, we don't have that luxury. It's now kind of black privilege to be able to say, well, you did it because I'm black. You got that to fall back on all the time. Well, it's because I'm black you did it. It's pulled over for a speeding ticket. Well, because I'm black. You saw a black man driving by and you thought I had drugs, so you pulled me over for a speed. No, it was really because you were going 70 in a fucking 25-mile-an-hour zone. It wasn't because you're black. Okay. So that's the problem, people. Okay. Now, I will also say that I haven't seen, and I'm sure there are. I grew up with a lot of Mexicans. Okay. Illegal Mexicans, legal, Americans who are Mexican American, so on. I've never met one who was a racist. I'll be honest. I'm sure that there are. Okay. I'm sure that there are. I just never had a bad experience with a Mexican. Okay. Asians. I've never met a racist Asian. We could go on. I think another, I think Jewish people are subject to some really significant issues in America, and that shit needs to be fixed too. And it's obviously because of the war in Gaza right now. Let me remind you that it was Hamas who attacked Israel. Okay, this is that fucking simple. They attacked Israel, and it was 6 million Jews who died, and trying to destroy their entire race. And Israel is a little tiny country over in the Middle East, and they have decided that they're not going to let anybody terminate them. And that's what some people want to do in the Middle East. Okay. So sometimes they have a heavy hand. Okay. Sometimes they do. And if 6 million of your people were murdered, were burnt alive, because that was the cheapest way to kill them in a war, you might be that way too. Okay. And the people who are supporting Hamas, who is a fucking terrorist group, who are, I got no love for you. No love for you whatsoever. And I'm going to say this. I never met a racist Jew. Okay. Never met one. I don't know a lot of Jewish people, but I do know some. And I've never met a racist Jewish person. Okay. They are definitely not fans of Hamas or Iranians. But, the obvious, Iran attacks them, so yeah, those are the two biggest issues of race I see in the United States. And I'm not saying, so we don't have, we don't have a huge white supremacist problem in America. We just don't. if you say we do, you won't be able to provide any statistical data that supports that. Okay, that I haven't seen a single news story that would support that. They're not, if they're out there, even if they're out there, um, you know, demonstrating or whatever the fuck they're doing, they're not doing anything other than demonstrating, which they have a right to do. Um, you know, uh, we may not like it that they do it, but they have a right to do it. So, but we don't have a, like a KKK issue, white supremacist issue in America. We just don't. All right. I know that's gonna probably enrage some people. Oh yeah, we do. Okay, well, just show it to me. If I'm wrong, show it to me. And I'll admit it, but I just don't see it. I just do not see it. Now, I will say there are some racist whites. Okay, there are certainly some racist whites. I get that. Um, and I'm not going to excuse their behavior. Not going to excuse it. Uh, but we need to check that behavior too. When if we're as a white guy, if I were to see that myself and somebody, some other white person, calling a black person the N word or what have you, I'm gonna be like, what did you just, I'll be checking them. Okay, I would like to see that from black folks, the same thing. All right, that's what I'd like to see. So all of us could live on the same earth together and get along. And I know there are some, there are absolutely some, some great black folks, just like great white folks, great, everybody. We have some people who just can't get along. All right, just can't get along. We'll leave it at that. So, treat people or treat people based on their behavior. All right, not the color of their skin. All right, that's it. All right, that'll probably get me in a little hot water, but if I just like to say that, if anything that I've said has offended you or bothered you in any way, I really don't give a shit. So we'll move on. The quality of public schools. Yeah. So what's crazy is, and I don't have any kids in school. So what I see is, I have a grandson in school and got some little grandkids that are getting there. But we're getting so far away from our core studies that like math and English and science and history and all of that stuff. We're getting so far away from that, it's kind of concerning. I think we need to get back to that, and I think teachers, this is the big one, okay, is teachers need to do their job, okay, and teach the subject that the parents get a say in the subject that are taught in the schools. The parents need to be part of that equation. They need to be part of what is being taught to their children. And if if the school board decides to teach some stuff about gay relationships, which is some of the things that have upset parents, because when I went to school, they didn't even teach about heterosexual relationships. There was there was some kind of there was some kind of a class, I think, but there was no like detailed bullshit. Like, I have seen the books, obviously the ones that people want taken out of the libraries that are tremendously graphic. Tremendously graphic. They want those taken out, and I can understand why. So yeah, so parents need to be more involved in this, in the things that are being taught their children. They need to be directly involved in that shit. Teachers need to understand that they have a job to teach, not to raise. Teach, but not to raise. Okay, that's it. You don't get to raise somebody else's child, and that's where things are going really fucked up. Okay, is these teachers, and I'm not, we have some fantastic teachers. Okay, I'm not saying we don't, but there are some teachers who are really out of pocket. They believe that they should be able to do basically anything they want to in that classroom, and it's none of the parents' business. Okay, it is their job, and they'll come out and say it, just that. Okay, that's a problem. Okay, and those teachers, they need to be fired. They need to be, or first you let them know, if you don't change your attitude, you will be fired, and then fire them. And I think if they've got that attitude already, I don't think they're fixable. Okay, I do not think they're fixable. All right, so teach, not raise. That's my fix. Ooh, we're at 26 minutes. That's about what I want, man. We only got two on this one. I think it was two, but I think that's where I want to be on this, man. Again, if I upset you, oh man, I'm really, really not sorry. But it's, man, I really thought about the one about race, and if I really feel like if I'm gonna be honest and straightforward, if I'm gonna do this, I need to be honest and straightforward. All right. I don't have any, truthfully, I have no ill intent towards anyone. I want to. All I want to do is make the world a better place. All right. Be happy. I want, I'm that's it. I want everybody to live together harmoniously, whatever. But sometimes people need to hear the hard facts. Okay. And I think if you get the emotion out of your head, okay, get the emotion completely out of your head and hear what I have to say, I think you'll probably agree with me. Okay. But you have to be okay to get that emotion out of your head and not immediately say I'm racist. And there's going to be some people who just immediately say I'm a racist. Okay. And okay, I don't give a shit. I am way too old to give a shit about what anyone thinks about me. All right. I when I started to do this podcast, I wanted no bullshit. So I'm not going to sit here and try to tiptoe around a very, very important issue, like racial tension in America, and then not be straightforward about what my thoughts are. So again, if you're soft and I hurt your feelings, I'm pretty sure you'll get over it. But I really didn't intend to hurt anybody's feelings, to be honest. I'm a little harsh with it, but I didn't intend to. So anyway, that's what I got for you today. We're on this podcast, and that's it.
There's only one, and